Welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, where we bring you conversations with the top business minds on Long Island and around the nation every week. Featuring expert consultants and small business owners who have found success but are also willing to share their top tips, failures, and give gritty, matter-of-fact advice based on their firsthand experience. Now, let's get down to business on Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello and welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation. My name is Ray Schwetz, AVP of Business Banking at Jovia Financial Credit Union, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, CEO, Keep Their Brand, Marketing and Digital Agency.
We're focused on being the premier resource for business and entrepreneurship. We bring you weekly business advice, tips, tools, and services that help you grow your business. Plus, we interview the top business leaders in the industry.
And helping provide us with business empowerment today is Gary Charles, and he's the CEO and founder of Advancement of Blacks in Sports, ABIS, the voice for racial equity in sports. Welcome to the show, Gary.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, Ray, I'm so excited because Gary is really the godfather of grassroots basketball. So this is like super, super cool right now.
Very cool. All right, well, Gary, you have to explain. How did you come up? How did you get this moniker?
Well, you know what? I live out here in Long Island. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Roosevelt. I actually grew up with Eddie Murphy, Chuck D from Public Enemy, and actually the ex-president of the New York Knicks, Steve Mills, in a 1 square mile town. You know, when I graduated college, the old school guys asked if I could get back involved in helping the kids in the neighborhood, and I did. And I grew like a 200-team event in Roosevelt. But then I picked the all-star team out of it to start traveling around. And it was tough at first because I was working on Wall Street, too. I worked on Wall Street for over 20 years. But doing the basketball side, I saw opportunity for kids in Long Island to get scholarships. And I wanted to proceed with that. And during that time, somehow, I ended up with a young man who was 6'11". He was in the 8th grade. Wow. And he eventually he became a top 5 player in the country, along with Allen Iverson, Felipe Lopez. It was Antoine Walker. They were part of the top 5 in the country. And a gentleman called me by the name of Sonny Vaccaro. Sonny Vaccaro was really the original godfather of grassroots basketball. He signed Michael Jordan to his first shoe deal. Oh, okay. Wow. Sonny was also the gentleman who started college coaches getting paid for wearing the shoes. Okay, and they thought the man was crazy, but that's how this all got started. So Sonny had left Nike and was coming over. Went over to left him, but he still had his camp called ABCD camp, and asked me if I could help him start grassroots program. And I was the first one that he signed. And that's how I got started with that.
Wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, tell us a little bit about ABIS. Tell us about why they are the voice of equality in sports.
Obviously, when I watched the George Floyd situation, I thought I was watching a murder. And it felt in my heart, that I needed to do something or say something. And I put a video out on Twitter that went viral. In the video, some of the things I said was, white people, I understand right now you're uncomfortable. You're watching us march every day. Understand as a black man, we're uncomfortable every day. I understand that no one should be out there burning any buildings. I just wish your ancestors felt the same way about burning down a whole town of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then I challenged the black coaches. I said, okay, but what are we going to do about it? When are we going to come together and make a statement? With that, some of the coaches called me. Coaches like Leonard Hamilton from Florida State, Dave Ladle, who at the time was the head coach at DePaul. We started talking. I went out and got grassroots coaches from across the country because obviously that's the world I came from. And we just started having some heart-to-heart conversation. Mike Boyden from Oklahoma State. Then I said, we need to get the women involved. So we reached out to Dawn Staley of South Carolina, Vivian Stringer of Rutgers. And next thing you knew, we were going, and I reached out to a woman named Felicia Hall Allen, who, if a movie was being made, that's when the movie really kicked off, when we brought her on into the group. And then we reached out to other sports. And we really believed that we could make a difference, hence the voice of racial equity in sports.
I love it.
That's just amazing. I mean, that was such a trying time for the entire country. And to see that you built something out of that positive to come out of that is really touching. Now, you mentioned a lot of, coaches and athletes. So are those some of the people that are on your current board and support ABIS and their mission?
Absolutely. So, for example, Leonard is an advisory board, not the main board because of his time situation. Like I said, Leonard, we're just going to kick you to the advisory board, so to speak. Kelvin Sampson is involved from Houston. Mike is not on the board, but he is the vice president for our basketball division, for example. But some of the members of the board are Nikki Fargas. Nikki Fargas used to be the women coach at LSU. And she said, this is her, not me, saying this. She said, because of being involved with ABIS, Mark Davis of the Raiders flew in to talk to her. And by the time he left, he gave her the position of president of the WNBA Las Vegas Aces. Okay, so Nikki is on the board. As I mentioned, Felicia Hall-Allen is on the board. Beverly Kearney. Beverly Kearney used to be the head track coach for the University of Texas. She won 7 national track championship and as coach over 12 Olympians. These are the type of people that we have on the board. Ulyss Payne. Ulyss Payne was the first black man to be named the CEO of a Major League Baseball team, Milwaukee Brewers.
Wow.
Oh, wow. That's an impressive, an amazing lineup of folks that are involved in supporting the group. What sort of actions are you taking? What sort of things are you doing?
I came in, so many of them, it's just unbelievable. Yeah. One of them, we started a financial coaching program with JP Morgan Chase. JP Morgan Chase gave us a grant, so shout out to JP Morgan Chase, okay, for that.
That is great. In
which that we are currently having classes with Hofstra University collegiate athletes and St. John's University, in which we're teaching them how do you open up a checkbook? What's the credit rating? What's the interest rate? What do you do to prepare to buy a house? Things that these kids need to know, because you know what happens? You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And these athletes all believe that they're going to be a pro. And I don't want to take their dreams away from them, but we want to prepare them. So we're going to expand that with other schools. But that's one of the things we're doing. We were also involved with a gentleman by the name of Travis Williams, ex-basketball coach at Tennessee State. He had an idea, which was to have a HBCU All-Star game during the Final Four, because these kids are never going to get a chance to get to the Final Four. So that was his idea. Well, he took it to the NCAA, who took it to someone else, and the other group tried to take it for themselves and cut a deal with CBS. Well, we got involved. He called me, and we talked about it. I got Ben Crump involved, along with some other lawyers. Next thing you know, CBS took that deal away because they didn't know, and they gave him a deal. So this year it's going to be an HBCU All-Star game during the Final Four. So that's one of the things we're doing. Also, when we see something wrong out there in the sports world, we talk about it. We come together, we put out a statement as to why we believe this is wrong and discuss ways to improve on those things. Like, for example, I have a meeting later on about the whole situation with Bryant Flores as to what's going on with him. So I'm meeting tonight with, later on with the National Coalition of Football Coaches, okay, in which Mike Tomlin's on the board, Saban from Alabama is also on the board, and some general managers. So we try to stay involved because we're the voice for racial equity in sports.
And I mean, that's amazing. What is it that you're looking for in corporate partners? You mentioned the Chase program. I think that's amazing. My daughter's doing the Commerce Plaza program, and I think we need that for our youth. What other programs can other corporate sponsors be involved with? Black
vendorship. A couple of years ago in a football game, if you look down the field, I believe it was 20 out of 22 starters were black. But in the community, while they had a chance to spend $17 million out there, $2,500 went to the black community out that $17 million during that time. So we're trying to help that. Like, come on. Are you serious? You couldn't have hired a couple other, black vendors to help with that situation? So things in the nation, we're trying to uplift our community. Right now, like they just mentioned in the NFL, 70% of the players are black. We're not trying to take over. We're just saying give us the opportunity too, like everyone else.
You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Ness Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, and our guest today is Gary Charles. He's the CEO and founder of Advancement in Blacks in Sports, ABIS, the voice for racial equity in sports.
Now, Gary, you mentioned Sonny, and I just want to touch base on you talked about the amazing shoe deals that he did. But one that you helped, facilitate was his shoe deal when he signed Kobe Bryant. So can you tell our audience a little bit about that and how, you saw that come to life? You kind of lived through that entire experience.
Yeah, one of the things I want to tell audience, just remember this. This was before cell phones, okay? So this was like really, I guess they would call it primitive right now, right? But that's how we lived back then. Yeah. So because of the fact that I was a grassroots coach and had one of the better programs in the country, Joe Bryant, Kobe's dad, used to follow my team, and he was recruiting one of my players. Joe Bryant at the time was the assistant coach at LaSalle University. And again, because he was a coach and he had a son playing, it didn't matter if he came during a live period or dead period. And so audience understand, there's only a certain amount of time when coaches could come out to see players play. That's called a live period. Then there's a dead period in which you're not allowed to come. Well, it didn't matter for Joe because his son was playing, so he can always come and see his son at any time. So we were actually playing in a tournament in South Jersey called War in the Woods. It was almost like you go in the middle of nowhere and you made a left in the woods, and next thing you know, boom, open up. There was 3 courts outside that was there in someone's home. Wow. Unbelievable. And that's what we were playing at. So I would see Kobe play. So one time, as Joe finished watching my game, he said, hey, let's go see my son play, who was playing to the next court. Because my team was loaded. This is when Lamar Odom was young, had Speedy Claxton, and Malik Allen. We had 3 pros on the team, so we already won our game. So I go over there to watch Kobe play. And what I remember was he made a jump shot, and his dad hit me in the ribs, said, did you see that? Did you see that? And I'm like, yeah, man, I saw it. Kobe comes down. Did you see that? Did you see that? I'm like, yeah, I saw it. Then he comes down, boom, he dunks the ball. The dad hits me again in the rib. Did you see that? Did you see that? I'm like, yeah, man, just not hit me no more. All right? And then Kobe comes, says the same thing. In my head, I'm thinking, this is going to be the kid. Because one of the things that Sonny had said to me when we first got together was, I need you to help me find the next Michael Jordan. And I think the only way we could find it and beat Nike to it is if we start a relationship from the grassroots level. Okay? So that stayed in my mind. And right away I said, that's the one. And I went to Sonny. I said, Sonny, I think I found a kid. He said, what do you mean? I said, we need to invite this kid to camp. Because Sonny had a camp called ABCD camp, which became the top camp in the country, in which we invited top 150 players every year in July. Mm-hmm. It's like 5 days in July. So when I said to him, it's Joe Bryant's son, he said, Jelly Bean? Because that was Kobe's dad's nickname. Well, Jelly Bean had played for Sonny's All-American game he used to do called the Dapper Dan Classic in Pittsburgh. He was actually the MVP in the game. So Sonny knew about Joe, said, bring him to the camp. And we did. And then finally, after Sonny saw him play, he said, this is the one. And at some point, Joe said to me, my son wants to go straight to the pros. And I said, what? Keep it to yourself. You and I are going to make it happen. But no one needs to know. Because I didn't want Nike to find out. So they really didn't know how good he was. Remember that, this is, again, before social media, before these reports and everything else. So Sonny ended up moving to New York for 3 or 4 months. All right? But people thought Sonny moved out here to get ready for Felipe Lopez, who was like the guy.
He was.
Okay?
Yeah.
And he was that guy.
He was.
But what we would do is we would drive to Philadelphia and go watch the Villanova games. Because Kerry Kittle was playing for Villanova at the time, and he was going to be considered a top 10 player, coming out. And so people thought we were going out there to see Kerry to give him a shoe deal. Reality is we were using that as camouflage because Kobe lived 5 minutes away. So we would go to the games, but after the games, we would go have the meeting with the dad. Okay? And then sometimes the dad would have to drive to my house. All right? Because remember now, if you didn't get a person at his house when you called, you didn't get them.
Right.
Okay? Yeah.
Right.
And because we didn't want people to know, we would drive back and forth. And I felt so bad one time Joe drove all the way to my house. I wasn't there because I totally forgot. It wasn't until a week later when he got me, he said, what happened to you? I said, what do you mean? He said, I showed up at your house. You weren't there. I said, oh, my God, I know you're there. He said, I waited 2 hours. I said, what did you do? He said, I was looking at the color of your flowers. That's what I was doing. Those are the things that was happening back then. We just had like a trust in each other. And I really believe this was the guy.
And that's what stands out to me. You know, when you're talking about this conversation and keeping it to yourselves, that's a lot of trust. And, you know, honestly, meeting you, you're kind of an instantly likable guy. What is it like? What's the Gary factor? Like, what is it that brings people to trust you so much?
You know, the way you see me dressed right now, I've been dressed like this since 9th grade. That's just the way, you know, I've been.
And ladies and gentlemen, he is suited and booted right now. Tie, you know, 3-piece suit, hat, and that's each and every day of the work. 365.
Each and every single day. And I used to wear my hat in high school, and it was interesting in high school that assistant principal would meet me at the door. He would take my hat, because I wasn't allowed to wear the hat inside.
Oh, okay.
He would take the hat. At the end of the day, he would meet me at the door to give my hat back. Okay? That was the respect he had for me, because he didn't say, don't ever wear no hat. We end up with a trust factor. I'm as real as can be. I am who I am. So when people would say, what are you doing? Why are you dressing like this? And my attitude was always, I'm dressing for success. Okay, when I went to college, I went to Cheney State at the time. It's now Cheney University, and the head coach at the time was the former Temple coach, John Cheney, and the women coach at the time was Vivian Stringer, who's currently at Rutgers. And he used to look at me like, I can't believe you wear a suit every day. I'm like, Coach, that's just who I am. And so when parents meet me and see the way I am, and then at the time I was working on Wall Street. Yeah, you know, a black parent would say, son, I want you to be like this man. So it made it easier for me to be able to recruit this young man into my program.
So we call that the Gary factor, but that's, you know, a little, so you've experienced the Mamba mentality from inception.
Yep.
With the Gary factor.
Yep.
Now that's a perfect combination.
I'll tell you this, you know, one of my proudest moments was when Kobe bought his first house. And Sonny and Pam is Sonny's wife, most beautiful woman you ever want to meet. She's just awesome. The house was bought in Pacific Palisade, okay, in California. So now I come over. Kobe said, come on, Mr. Charles. He always calls me Mr. Charles. Mr. Charles, come and see my house. Come and see inside. He starts showing me the house. And it's amazing because as we were going through one of the hallways, there was a picture of Sidney Crawford on there. I always remember he loved Sidney Crawford. Then he opened up his closet. There was nothing but suits in there. And he said, look at my Gary Charles closet. How about that, huh? I never forgot that.
No, I love that. So, Gary, you have a lot going on. I mean, you take over, you know, grassroots, and now you have the big-time basketball tournament in Las Vegas. And then you also have a new award show that's launching in Las Vegas. Can you talk about those two events that you have?
Absolutely. So, Sonny retired around 2008, I believe, after been doing a tournament for years in Vegas. It was called the Las Vegas Big Time tournament. And a couple of people said, Gary, we can't let this die. And we had been going at this in 1991. I didn't want to stop coming to Vegas. So a friend of mine and I decided, like, why don't we do our own tournament? And at first it was called the Las Vegas Fab 48. He kept pushing me, let's call it 48. We can only do 48 teams. And I said, I'm thinking it's going to be more. Okay. But I'm like, okay, fine, we'll call it 48. And of course, the first year we had 110 teams.
Wow.
But right after that, eventually it grew up to 1,000 teams. But a couple years ago, I changed the name. I called Sonny and said, Sonny, do you mind if I pay homage to you and the original name of Las Vegas Big Time? He said, Gary, no one else could do it but you. Yes. So we changed it to Las Vegas Big Time. And by the way, obviously the original Las Vegas Big Time, you had Kobe played in it. You had LeBron played. Lamar Odom, who played for me, all played in it. James Harden, Russell Westbrook, you just name it. Kevin Love, and on and on. But now that I have my own event, guess what? LeBron James' son are now playing in my event. Carmelo Anthony, who played in the original one, his son playing in my event. Russell Westbrook sponsors a program. He comes and watch every year and watch this team. James Harden, he brings 3 teams and come and support. D. Wade's son playing it. So I love that idea of watching these guys. Kenyon Martin one time came and watched his son play, and his son hit a 50-foot jump shot to win the game at the buzzer. Kenyon fell on the ground, so happy. And I'm like, dude, get up, man. You act like you won the Final Four. I mean, but it was just to see the excitement. Kenny Smith, I watched Kenny Smith have his kids from the age of 10 or 11 and come all the way up with his kids coming playing in the Fab 48/Big Time. That's awesome. You know, it really is. When you think about it, in that the respect factor that these guys have to still trust me. Tracy McGrady called me recently. I'm bringing my son's team to your event, this year.
You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio. Our guest today is Gary Charles, CEO and founder of Advancement of Blacks in Sports. ABIS, the voice of racial equality in sports. I'm Donyshia Boston-Hill, along with Ray Schwetz on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Now, we talked about the big time, and now you're really taking it to another level with the award show.
Absolutely. I've always felt for a long time in that as blacks, people don't recognize the things that we do. I call it like the hidden figure factor. Well, it's time for us to let people know, we have to tell our own narrative. We can't be waiting on someone else to tell our story. Because sometimes, stories get distorted and it becomes real history, even though it's not. So I've had this idea for over 10 years in that, wouldn't it be cool if we had our own event? And so what we're starting this year is the Champion and Legends Gala, okay, in which we're going to bring in the top blacks so people can start to get to know who they are. And some of the things we're doing, like, for example, we're going to name our Economic and Sustainability Award after Shaq. So it's going to be called the Shaquille O'Neal Economic and Sustainability Award. And then we give that to someone. I can't tell you who it is right now because then I have to kill you. Okay. So we're going to do the Sonny Vaccaro, Champion of Change, because of the things he's done with the NIL, grassroots, getting Michael. He needs to be honored, okay? Because it's okay to have allies who's been helping us. So I think it's extremely important. John Carlos, the Social Activist Award. And you know what? Most of these kids, when I ask them, do you know who John Carlos is? They'll say, no, who's that? And then I'll go, remember the Olympic and the man raised his fist? They go, oh, that's him? I say, yeah. So we're going to have a John Carlos Social Activist Award. Vivian Stringer. Vivian Stringer is one of the most, one of the first blacks coaches, woman, who did a lot. So we're going to have the award called the Vivian Stringer Pioneer Award. Jackie Joyner-Kersee. We're going to have a Jackie Joyner-Kersee Excellence Award. So those are the things that we're doing at the gala to bring out people so people go, I didn't know this. That's what this is about. I
think that's great. And it makes some household names. Now, you mentioned you've grown up with some legends and you've worked with some. Was there anybody in particular that when you first started kind of interacting with them, you got kind of chills and you were like, this is somebody who's really like, wow, like
this is the GOAT,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I think I felt like that about Sonny Vaccaro. I never forget Howie Garfinkel, who ran 5-Star Camp, who's actually in the Hall of Fame right now, was anointed in it, called me up and he said, Gary, do you know Sonny Vaccaro? I'm like, yeah, I know Sonny Vaccaro. He said, well, he would like to talk to you. And I said, oh. He said, he'll call you at some point. And I remember I was about to get in the shower right after I hung up from Howie. Bling, my phone call, right away. It was like, Gary Charles? Yeah. It's Sonny Vaccaro. So I couldn't believe I was talking to the man that just signed Michael Jordan and who I had known my history had helped these coaches get shoe deals. Okay. And he invited me to come out there to the Final Four that year. And I will say this, the other guy that sent chill up my spine was that if you go to the Final Four at the hotel, every college coach is in the lobby. It's just unbelievable. And I saw like the biggest head I'd ever seen in my life sticking out. And it was Coach John Thompson. And Sonny introduced us. That sent chill up my spine too, meeting him for the first time.
Now, I mean, I'm getting chills just listening to you talk. I'm thinking about like all the super college coaches that I've ever met over the years. But, you're doing something and you're making change and hosting events right here on Long Island, which is fantastic because this is your home.
This is my home.
So you're bringing, again, the Golf Classic, the ABIS Golf Classic here to Long Island. Can you talk to us about who you've honored in the past and what's to come?
So again, it was another opportunity for us to honor our own. And a lot of these coaches, they golf. So it was a lot easier just to say, hey guys, let's have a golf outing. So last year we did it. We did it, matter of fact, right here in Garden City. We did Cherry Valley. And we honored Craig Robinson. And for the audience who don't know who he is, he's the older brother of Michelle Obama. But he is currently the executive director for the National Association of Basketball Coaches for the NCAA. So I felt that he needed to be honored for doing those things. He just happened to be Michelle
Obama's brother.
All right. We also honored Colette Smith, who was the first black woman to coach in the NFL, New York Jets. We honored Chris Arsenault, who's a black golfer who went through all kinds of things in which he couldn't get in because people thought maybe, what are you doing here? Go the other way. He said, no, I'm golfing. I'm on the tour. So he went through those things. We felt that we needed to honor him, also, because at one point he grew up in Roosevelt. He lives in Louisiana now, but he grew up in Roosevelt. So I just thought, again, an opportunity to people to understand what history, rich history that we have.
Now, how does one get involved in ABIS?
Sign up. So we have a website. It's weareabis.org. We're cool with anyone sign up as long as you're for our mission. Okay? All we're trying to do is bring awareness to our plight. Like, for example, we don't try to shove it down your throat, but we have a saying which is, do you see what we see? That's kind of like our hashtag, do you see what we see? So that's why we'll continue doing these things. So our golf outing, for example, this year, we want to honor Kenny Smith, NBA legend, the Jet, currently, still on TV. So Kenny is going to be one of our guys. We're honoring Jason Williams. Jason Williams, the former New Jersey Nets pro player, and he also plays St. John right here. And he loves golfing. So, and they love our mission. And I think that's the key thing for people to understand, that when people look at it, they go, oh my God, why didn't we think of this before? So this is why we have people across spectrum in all the sports discussing this. Willie Randolph came to one of my meetings and was telling us his plight. Willie Randolph, the legend, New York Mets manager, and he was telling us the things that he's been through. So you think it's just you. No. Gary Sheffield came on. Where do I sign? This is what we have seen, and people saying, I love what you're doing. When Dawn Staley was coaching last year, even this year, and I sent her a text, I said, Dawn, we're so proud of you. Keep it going. Right after the game, she texted me back, thank you, Gary. We're trying to make you proud. This is what's going on across the country.
And that's amazing. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank you, Gary Charles, CEO and founder of Advancement of Blacks in Sports, ABIS, the voice for racial equity in sports.
I'll leave you with DB's philosophy. Seek equality and fair treatment of black people by influencing institutional policies and practices that promote racial, social, and economic justice. ABIS, Gary Charles.
We want to thank you for being with us. My name is Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, your co-host and producers. This is an NCC Foundation production. Visit nccradio.org for more information. We're available on Odyssey, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This has been Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the National Community College Foundation on the voice of National Community College, 90.3 WHPC.